Well, hey there, I'm Scott King. That is Chris Kraus and John Michelsen. Today we're going to talk about ChatGPT and other learning language models. So we've been getting a lot of questions about ChatGPT. What do you guys think? How is this going to be used? So, John, this thing is taken off like crazy. You had 1 million users inside of like 5 days. Now they're going to charge for it, right? So you can get in front of the line. But people are thinking that this is going to take their jobs. It's going to solve every problem that ever existed. You know, I think they're just overextending their skis a bit. What's your opinion on where this thing is going?
Well, so it is definitely a phenomenon. I think the best thing for that ChatGPT is already doing is it's raising expectations of what AI can do and how humans and computers should be interacting. That's near and dear to our hearts, obviously, right? We wrote a mission statement to make technology that understands people, not to make understandable technology. So making the tech understand how we work and integrating with us, the tech integrating with us, is a great thing. So I love the fact that it's raising the bar there, and and of course it'll just continue to mature. Moore's law is applying in AI, maybe even beyond what it did in the hardware and in the CPU world. So I'm a big believer in the tech itself and all of these general AI models. They are not the only one. I'm already in Google's AI kitchen, and there's more are coming. It's great to see that this is happening. Of course, everything tends to be overhyped and even taken in places where, but hey, let's start with it's great to see where I think we're going the right direction in terms of where our expectations need to be with how humans and computers interact.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, to me, that's the big part, right? Because people realized that, I could talk to the computer in a conversational manner, just like I
Mhm.
do with my coworkers to solve a problem. So I think that, that's really the biggest, level setting, right? I mean, and that's good for everybody because we all know how to have a conversation.
Yeah,
Right.
if you think about
It always
awareness,
stinks. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
so awareness, even my mom knows,
Yeah.
Chris says that computer stuff, but what is this? So, like, the
Mhm.
actual awareness of the general population that you're because they realize it's different than Google, because you're getting something that sounds like everybody talks about the homework and children will never write another essay. So it's like it's probably a pain point that everybody had. And so now people are talking about that. They're like, wow, I'm asking questions. It's giving me a sentence back. And of course, I'm amazed. Like, even my neighbors who are like, they're not highly technical people. They have like cool jobs in the world. They're not computer people like us. And they're like, I saw this. This is interesting. I learned about it. And of course, in our world, now I'm like, could someone offshore become a coder and just ask ChatGPT to write everything? From a product standpoint, I'm like, wow, that's really, There's a lot of applications there. It's going to change just everybody's perception of what AI is, which I think is good.
Yeah, I think that it does help, right? I would hope we wouldn't, leave all coding to this thing, right? Because you never know if it's going to be right. It could definitely help me, right? I'm not a coder, and I could probably jump, ask it to do some things like that. But it's not going to solve like the outcome problem, right? So this is
Oh
still
no.
like to me, I mean, most of what I see about it is marketing stuff, right? So from a marketing standpoint, this thing is great. I've played with it quite a bit. It can help you do research, write outlines, maybe think of a different point of view. Like, you still have to write the content, but it does help you like think differently because it thinks differently.
Yeah.
But it doesn't solve my business problem.
There's
Right.
but
Right.
there's a catch 22, right? Because there's certain things Chat GPT can't do, because you're looking on the internet for answers, and that's great. So it was actually trained with general knowledge of the internet. So if you're in a company, it doesn't know like Microsoft's employee handbook, right? Because that's not on the internet. So from a business perspective, it's not going to be able to answer very particular questions about my business. And the problem with the internet is some data is good and some data is bad. So, when you do a Google search, some people think Google's going to go away. It's like, well, no, because if my top hit is fakenews.com, I'm pretty sure that's not real news. But in a chat GPT perspective, they're just looking at topics across as many sources as possible and then looking for answers. And it passes the Turing test, which means, did I give you a reasonable answer? And so, because we did this, Scott, right? We asked who's the Queen of England, and I think she's still alive because it doesn't know that. I looked up, asked about how many gold medals did U.S. win in the Olympics, and it said 113. Well, that's actually not Beijing, that's Tokyo Olympics. So that time horizon of what it knows, it's not going to know the latest things, but it passes the Turing test because that is a very reasonable answer that the U.S. could get 113 medals, right? So it's the accuracy that concerns me. So, or the fidelity of how do you know where the data is sourced? And that's cool on the internet, but that's going to be a problem in the enterprise level, right? John, what do you think? I mean, that's probably my biggest fear is understanding enterprise data versus, and give me the right answer, not a answer.
You made the point, and it is true. Well, what it's going to do is it's going to be a better way than the way we currently search, a la Google or Bing, for a number of things. But that won't mean that the way that we currently search with Google or Bing is a mistake in every case, because you do want to identify the source, and with a ChatGPT, you're not actually identifying source. It's actually source has been lost, but just as a backgrounder, OpenAI was founded to create obviously tech like this, but they are highly focused on trying to take bias and cleanliness into consideration. It's just a practically intractable problem. So they're of course working on it, but it's not really there. And when it just flat out gets an answer wrong, or it doesn't have sufficient context to answer the question that you had really intended to say, like any even human, it could obviously make the mistake of telling you the wrong medal count. We happen to be very much in tune with, instinctually, you would think the last in Olympics, not 3 Olympics back. It only knows up to a certain period of time. That's correct, but all of that is eventually going to get worked out. They're signed up for the right things. The challenge is, as we transition to, we're so excited about what this thing can do. Let's start building apps with it, and let's throw those onto desktops and see what happens. I think we're making another terribly fundamental mess there. So I love the tech. I just pardon me the word, I just despise how we're going to not really use it well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are these, so you said, let's bring this in, let's build an app with that. Is this just going to proliferate inside of a business, and then you want to play like, hey, is Google's better? Let's play with this one. I mean, is this going to create sprawl just like everything else?
Of course. So the thing is, we're looking at, in ChatGPT, we're looking at a great model of how humans and computers should interact, but we're going to actually not use it for that. We're gonna end up 18 months from now with, of course, OpenAI's chat embedded in a bunch of apps, and Microsoft's, or excuse me, that may be OpenAI's, and Google's, and IBM's, and 2 or 3 other general AI startups, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And here we go. We'll have not 50 apps on the average corporate desktop. We'll be up to 80, because it's not going to retire anything that's already there. It's just going to add a whole bunch of, and now all of them have different dialects because you fine tune the model in order to teach it your data. So each of those independent screens is going to have a different dialect, have certain expertise and not other expertise, and you're going to have basically overwhelm people with yet another bunch of, oh my gosh, you're kidding me, right? That's the fundamental problem, and that's not a chat GPT solve. That's a your organization problem. You need to solve how you orchestrate your people, your systems, and your AI. And until you do that, this is going to, of course, point solutions will pop. They'll have a certain amount of value, and you will continue to exacerbate the fundamental underlying problem, we think, which is why not make ChatGPT available to every existing business use case you already do? Not go build a single app to get a certain use case done and then go build another app to do another thing. That's what we're working on. That's what, and that's where we think the real value becomes. Because if you are already in the state where you've layered that, as Craig Leclerc calls it, an automation fabric that essentially envelops all of those system capabilities, and we add to that all of the people capabilities, and then you introduce a ChatGPT to that fabric, it gets woven into all of the things you're already doing and enhances those in dramatic ways. You're not going to do it that way. You're going to you're going to have 20 more apps, and you're going to have 3 different ones running at the same time. And instead of making a decision as an organization, when or where it's any of those, it's going to end up pseudo random, which of those general AI products you're going to end up using. And then there you go. So we think that this is great proof point and demand signal for how we should be making enterprise apps look and feel, literally via this chat. Of course, richer text, it can't be just text, right? A richer interface, but a conversational one. Super important, right? That conversational one. But it's definitely not sufficient to be an enterprise platform. And it needs to be plugged into an enterprise platform that has that reach. And it isn't going to get anything beyond very tactical task satisfaction. So it can answer a question about the number of Olympic medals, or maybe if you feed it with the proper information, it's going to tell you what were last year's sales, right, within your organization. But what it is not going to be able to do is carry out anything beyond that task level. So as soon as I ask for leave next week, it's if it may even be trained on the policies and procedures, but it doesn't have the ability to integrate Scott, my manager, and actually confirm and pull data from a production planning system to ensure that Scott is informed with the information he needs, that then he can approve within that same environment, and I'll get my answer. If I ask for leave next week, I imagine I'm going to get a sympathetic response. I'm not going to get an actual, oh, let me go ask Scott, right? But that's actually what an organization needs. So what we need is that conversational notion, but we don't need to be talking to just a computer. And it can't be just one computer. It's got to be all of the computers in an organization. That plus all the people in that organization woven together. Wow, right? So I think we take the first step by seeing what ChatGPT can do, but we are clearly still the beginning of a long path to get there. And that's where we all know we need to go. So I see that as the mission, and we are leveraging general AI. We're building our own AI in many places, but we are ourselves a consumer of AI from the likes of OpenAI, and we love it, and it's enriching our product, and it's enriching the other products as well.
Yeah. So, John, it makes me feel good with your answer because I need to work for 10 more years, right? I'm young, so my job is not going to be replaced by conversational AI. If I give it some requirements, all the developer code is done, right? It's going to be assistive, but it's probably 5 to 10 years of thinking about how do we actually get it to do something more than a task. And so it's not going to take away all of our jobs.
and Chris, this is another whole blog or another whole series, but code is actually not the way to get to outcomes. You know that. We have this whole notion of minutes, not months. If you have a business person and you say, here, blah 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 blah, this is what I want, and here comes Python or JavaScript, so what? That begins. That is the easy. And remember, every case tool we've ever seen on the market optimizes on creation and sucks on maintenance.
Yep.
And 90% of your TCO is maintenance. So here comes another. The fact that ChatGPT can generate some code is really kind of it's like a dog trick. It really is. I mean, in the scheme of things, it's a dog trick. But if you think about that as can I abstract that 5 levels up, and can I then have it understand what I'm really trying to describe as an end-to-end process, and I can actually model that, and I can describe that not as code because I don't want to start compilers, I don't want to start standing up dev and integration environments. That is not going to get it for me. But if that is where you go with it, then absolutely, right? But something still has to build the fabric. Something still has to connect all of the tech. Something still has to provide all the underlying capabilities.
Mhm.
Those are not going to be spoken into existence.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, sometimes you have to ask a person to be part of the process. And so everything
Yeah.
this data lookup doesn't have the concept of, well, I'm not sure, let me ask a person, or I should actually ask a person for decisions,
Yeah.
approvals, actions, right? So there's that whole injecting of
Right.
people that this is really, it doesn't even take that into account. And so, yeah, it could
Right.
simulate your
Yep.
boss, like you said, but it doesn't actually get you to, in the enterprise, I need someone to approve this, right? And so
Even worse. Even worse. I haven't done this, but let someone run to the computer and do it. Run to the screen and do it. If you ask it off, is it going to say yes?
yes.
Right? No HR system got updated. No manager knows. No contact details
Yeah.
while you're away were provided. But oh, sure, right?
Yeah. Why
So
not?
so clearly we've got work to do here, and that's the work that like I say, this is not an OpenAI issue. This is not a generative AI issue, and even in the space, this is a how do we best consume this tech and weave it into the things that we already have in terms of people and system capabilities and create better outcomes. That's what we need to be thinking. And until then, it's basically making it so the kids don't think they have to take tests anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, or write papers, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
a kid's essay or a kid's paper is basically just internet research and rewriting it anyway,
Shakespeare
right?
hasn't changed much.
I mean,
So.
that's the best use case, right? It's no more Encyclopedia Britannica; it's just internet.
yep, yep. But even in our cognitive issue resolution case, which is it's simplified. It's like email triage, right? Inbound email. You want AI to understand the email, not just happy sad, right? It needs to understand what actually is being discussed in that email. Maybe it's moving my delivery to Tuesday, or do you have certain things in stock, whatever, and performing the outcome. Um, it's there are a bunch of ChatGPT based little tools that have been popping up on the market that are trying to write your emails for you, but they can't do anything more than, at the very best, regurgitate the email content that it has already seen, or you've already told it. It is not reaching out to your backend system and saying, yes, you actually can move your delivery to Tuesday, right? It's not doing that. Its understanding is good, but we already have good NLU understanding in many places. Of course, OpenAI is one, and there are many others. The the the, the real value in understanding is so you can do something.
Yeah,
So we got to link the do something part, and as a front end to as not to no disrespect to the Tableau people, um, to get out of the conundrum of I need 40-foot screens so that I can get as many dashboard widgets as I would possibly want to see. That our whole yeah, that's another whole blog, is we've completely messed up with
yeah,
dashboards.
that's a good
A human
point.
interface, right? A
Yeah,
human interface. What Google originally taught us. Wait a minute, I don't need Yahoo's index of the entire internet. That's a fool's errand anyway. How about just a simple text box and then they can ask me? That's perfect, right? And if that's how we fetch information, especially, all that's great. And again, all of this increases the demand in the business community for this to be the solution we orient toward. I think that's absolutely great. Um, but obviously there's a lot left to do.
Cool.
all right, excellent. All right, so conversational interfaces are good. Chris, what if somebody seriously wants to look at something like this, and John talked about Fabric, right, which is the automation of the automation. You got any recommendation on like what they should look at? Like, okay, where do I start? Who do I do I send the CTO organization off on a research project and try to play with this? Like, what would you do?
So I think, I put it in a specific location. So there's, like, if you've got FAQs on your website or you've got internal employee policies in that, training those specifically so the data that went in is actually your company's data makes a lot of sense, because you can tell people it's on the wiki, it's in our policies. No one reads them, right? So because in that case, you're curating the specific information train it on that, and then make that an easier experience for people to have a conversation. It doesn't solve an outcome. It's just a task of, can I look up this information, and making that dramatically easier. So I think that's a good use case. When you want to move some past that and make that conversation tied to actions and multiple steps, then that's where you're getting into the interesting part. But if you want to tip your toe in the water, you could probably do that and claim success pretty easily.
Yeah, and that, and that really shifts the burden from someone in HR asking the question to just having the AI model, answer that question. That's a good, simple use case that I think we can all grasp onto. John, any closing thoughts? What should you leave us with today?
Well, I think what I started with, love ChatGPT and all of the tech that is gonna follow in its footsteps. There are a number. Like I said, I'm already playing with one at Google. Thank you guys for that access. The ability for us to get more and more human just takes us closer and closer to that Star Trek experience. I think we all know is where we belong. So all goodness, just not going to reach. We're not at the satisfying the level of hype that we think it is, but it is definitely a good thing. And as I say, we are a consumer of all kinds of AI in addition to building our own. So it is dramatically enhancing our product, which I love, and I'm sure it can enhance other things that folks who are watching are doing too. I would just hesitate if you do this on yet another app. Let's solve that problem by pulling in ChatGPT. Let's solve that problem in a different app by pulling in ChatGPT. Here goes the proliferation of another great mess, right?
Yeah. You're just creating more and more technical debt over and over. You can't get out of it.
That's right.
Well, perfect. Hey, well, thanks guys, and thanks everybody for listening.